This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's guest is a legendary actor who has brought us dozens of unforgettable performances in a career spanning over 5 decades. On Broadway, he originated the role of Danny Zuko in Grease, for which he was nominated for a Tony Award for Best Actor in a Musical. He got another Tony Award nomination for his performance in They Knew What They Wanted, and he won a Tony Award and got a Drama Desk Award nomination for his performance in The Robber Bridegroom. He also appeared on Broadway in Cock-a-Doodle Dandy, Hamlet, Soon, and Nick&Nora, and he starred in the national tour of the Pirates of Penzance. On the big screen, while it is certainly true that our guest will forever be immortalized as Susan Sarandon's straight-laced all-American boyfriend Brad in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, there can be no question that his talent, versatility, and diverse body of work extend far beyond that one phenomenally successful cult classic movie. His many other movie credits include Megaforce, Weekend at Bernie's 2, Project Metalbeast, Spy Hard, Evening, Holiday Baggage, Bedrooms, Finding Joy, The Field, and of course, Movie, for which he was nominated for a National Society of Film Critics Award and a New York Film Critics Circle Award. On television, we all remember him as the childish, vain, and outrageously inept Mayor Randall Winston in the classic TV sitcom Spin City. He's also appeared in many other iconic TV shows like Charlie's Angels, Hawaii Five-0, Foul Play, Scrubs, Ugly Betty, Ghost Whisperer, Nip Tuck, Glee, Hot in Cleveland, and he's had recurring roles in numerous shows like Law&Order SVU, Cougar Town, Research, Inside the Extras Studio, Still the King, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, and The Potwins. He's also starred in dozens of great TV movies and miniseries, including The Quins, You Can't Take It With You, Scruples, Red Flag, The Ultimate Game, George Washington, A Woman of Substance, Till We Meet Again, The Last U-Boat, Depth Charge, A Christmas Miracle, and last but certainly not least, the multi-award-winning miniseries War and Remembrance, for which our guest won a Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor in a historic tie with his co-star Sir John Gielgud. I'm delighted and honored to welcome the incomparable Barry Bostwick to our show. Barry, thank you so much for being here.
Project Metalbeast, huh? Boy, you went a very deep dive to find that one.
I sure did, and I loved it. I mentioned in my introduction that you and Sir John Gielgud both won Golden Globe Awards in the same category for performances in the same show, which was unheard of. That must have been quite a moment for you.
I should have probably accepted the award for him, too, because he wasn't there. But I decided that I would just take all the credit.
Wow. You originated the role of Danny Zuko on Broadway and Grease, for which you got a Tony Award nomination for Best Actor in a Musical. We've had a lot of people from Grease on our show, the director Tom Moore, Adrienne Barbeau, Adrian Zmed, and others, and they all talked about the very unique bond that developed between all of the cast members, which was the subject of a book, actually, called Grease, Tell Me More, Tell Me More. What made being in that cast with those people so magical?
Well, I guess I think we were all sort of starting out as actors, in the musical theater. And it was a struggle. I think that show was a struggle to get up and running. You remember way back when they needed some money. And I don't know, did Adrienne tell you the story about how they wanted us to, as a cast, to put together like $10,000 to buy a point in Greece at the point because they didn't have enough money for tennis shoes and everything. And we looked around, we said, nah, none of us had anything. We were just off of doing nothing. I mean, this was like a big deal for us. And so we couldn't scrape up the $10,000 for buying a point in Greece. And we regret it to this day because we wouldn't have to be doing anything else. We could be raising horses in, Oklahoma.
Yeah, she never told me that. But yes, if you had only had the money.
We didn't have any money. We were just a bunch of kids having a ball, we were acting up, acting out, and improvising. And in fact, the improvising, you would get out of hand sometimes. And Tom Moore, who you said you've had on, the director, he would always come in after a couple of weeks and go, but you can remove all the improvements now.
Yes, he told me that in the show. Would you like to have been in the movie version of Grease?
Well, I don't know what I would have played because I was older. Well, yeah, sure, everybody would like to take the role that they created and put it on film. But I was 26 or 27 when we did the show on Broadway. So I was way beyond playing a high schooler on camera when you come in close. And also John Travolta he was in Greece with us on the road. He did the part of Duty for months and months on the road with me when I was playing Danny. So I like to say that he stole everything from me because he was with me on stage every night. But John is such a unique, charming man that I don't think the movie would have gone anywhere without him. We had the same manager at the time, in fact, and the rumor was is that if John didn't do it, it probably wouldn't have been made at the time, right then.
Yeah, it's a pretty iconic performance. Now, speaking of iconic performances, this year is the 50th anniversary of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. You've been very supportive over the years, Barry, by going to screenings, conventions, participating in many other events. How does it feel when three generations of fans come up to you and tell you how much the movie meant to them in terms of their self acceptance, their feelings of inclusivity, really embracing the philosophy that we should be open minded and not judgmental with other people, which to me was the theme of the movie?
Well, you just said it all right there. I mean, those are the things I'm proud of. The fact of what it's carried on in the world, and those are things that I support specifically and generally. And so I'll go out and do a tour, like do one-nighters all over the country, in October or November, I'll go out and I'll go on stage and introduce the movie. We'll have a shadow cast, some great shadow casts around the country and the world. I will be amazed that if there's 1,000 people out there, how many of them now are under the age of 25? And whenever we do the virgin ceremony, there's always a good third of the audience standing up as virgins, and I'm going, this thing is never going to die because it is well, third generation, fourth generation will be coming up. I don't think I'll see it, but I know it will be there because of the style, color, verve, message, and just pure entertainment of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. My wife said to me, she said today, I said, I'm doing this interview with Harvey. She goes, don't just talk about Rocky Horror. She goes, you've done other things in your life. And I said, I'm sure Harvey will do a very deep dive into what I've done. I mean, if anybody who could find Cock-a-Doodle Dandy on Broadway, my first Broadway show, Harvey will do that.
Oh, for sure. But of course, Rocky Horror, I mean, you'll always be identified with it. And I learned that you filmed a song in the movie called Once in a While, which was cut from the movie. Do you know why?
Yeah, it slowed the movie down. It's a ballad at a time that the movie was just really starting to cook. And I don't think ultimately when you stack all the characters together, I don't think people cared what Brad's dilemma was at that moment. And for him to sing this pretty song, sitting on the edge of the bed smoking a cigarette after having some kind of sexual encounter with Frankenfurter, I don't think it's the first thing on the audience's mind. It's a good song. Even on stage, it slows it down. I just think it's in the wrong place. I'm proud of it, and sometimes if I do it at a convention or something, or I'm doing an appearance, I'll sing some of it, and the audience will love it. And I'll see. I feel like I'm, Paul McCartney singing "Blackbird, Blackbird." In terms of how because of that audience and how they know it, that they're so appreciative of the fact that I'm still involved in it, like it, and am not upset by the fact that it wasn't in the final film. It's in some of the stuff on DVDs, after the fact stuff. And I know you can see it that way, but it's a good song. I did well.
You did very well. In 2010, you guest starred in an episode of Glee along with Meatloaf, which paid tribute to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That must have been a lot of fun.
Well, it was just because I just think that cast was so phenomenal, and they were such hardworking actors, singers, dancers. I was in awe of all of them and how they could keep that pace up week after week after week. The only thing I wish that Meat and I had had a song or some music in it, but it was fun just to be, sort of a antagonist in it, and but I think I had more fun around getting coffee and donuts with the cast and chatting with them and again showing my appreciation, I think, for what they were doing and how they were pushing the genre into the homes of people who perhaps didn't have a lot of interest and or experience with the musical theater.
Yeah, it was an iconic show. It was a classic episode. And then in 2005, I remember thinking Barry Bostwick really knows how to please his fans. You appeared in an episode of Cold Case called Creatures of the Night, which revolved around the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and
Yeah.
everybody really enjoyed that. Thank you for doing so much for your fans.
Well, no, you're welcome. I thought the cold case thing was so interesting because they used the music, the original music, in the most brilliant way. And I don't think the music from the Rocky Horror Picture Show has been used as well as it was used in that episode. I was like stunt casting. Give me. I was the older version of the younger version who was the killer, right? Yeah, that was, great fun. And anytime Rocky Horror Picture Show is referenced somewhere, I think it's a very good thing because I just think that the message and the music and the whole genre gestalt kind of experience of the Rocky Horror Show is so unique and mind and society changing.
Well, now, as I understand it, the Rocky Horror Picture Show is now owned by the Disney company. Do you think the Disney people will devote enough resources to keep the movie going in the public eye?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think Walt is rolling over in his ice incubator at the moment, wondering what the hell do we have here? Rocky Horror Picture Show. But they have such a diverse catalog now, and it's still making a lot of money for them. So I don't know why they would ignore it. It's getting more and more difficult for these shadowcasts around the world and the country to get the rights to do it on a nightly basis because it's becoming so expensive. They charge you per seat, they so much. I hope that some of these shadow casts just find some way to steal it, because we as a cast, we get nothing. There's no residuals on this, we have no payback for us. So, and I think Disney is making enough money in the world. I encourage them to, if they can't afford it, set up their computer backstage and hook it into the sound system or something. I don't know. I hope it's not stopped just because of the corporate issue with Disney. I mean, we haven't even heard whether or not Disney's going to do a 50th anniversary show or any kind of, release of information or any new music. But 50 years, a lot has been released. I don't know how they're going to find anything else that's fresh. Richard O'Brien, who wrote it, his son is doing a documentary on Richard's life, and that'll probably be out this year. And I know that there was a documentary in the works about exploring the shadow casts and the people in the shadow casts all over the world. What was it called? Rocky Horror Saved My Life. But that hasn't seen the light of day yet. And I'm sure there'll be more books written on it. That's how I find out about it. I read the books because I don't remember a damn thing from 1974.
Well, I certainly hope that Disney does something for the 50th anniversary. There are not many movies that have that kind of enduring life
No,
half a century
definitely.
later. And another classic film you were in is Movie, directed by the great Stanley Donen. And you got to work with a number of legendary stars like George C. Scott, Art Carney, Red Buttons, Eli Wallach. And you didn't even have to audition for one of the toughest directors in the business. That was quite an accomplishment, don't you think?
Stanley Donen, who directed, as you just said, movie, was looking for a young, sort of youngish, yeah, well, young Broadway singer, dancer, actor. And Jerome Robbins was talking to him and recommended me for it. So therefore, I didn't even have to audition, as you say, and it was quite a moment in my life. Unfortunately, the movie came out at a Christmas time, and Any Which Way But Loose. What was that movie with Clint Eastwood with a monkey? Any Which Way But Loose, I think. Came out at the same time, and we were so overpowered by the Clint Eastwood movie that we came and went very quickly in the theaters. And it's had a life. It had a nice life, on cable and the DVDs and all of that. But it was never quite appreciated, I think, as much as it should have. But the cast was phenomenal, and the whole idea of it, where the same actors are in two different stories, playing two other characters. So it was wonderful to be able to do that and to be directed by Stanley, who certainly had his he knew what the hell he was doing. But the movie is a colorful rock musical side, and then there is that black and white, gritty side. And I just remember the what I forget what we did. I think we did the musical side first, and then he sort of he changed the entire crew for the black and white side, and I don't know why, whether he wasn't happy with them, or he just wanted a whole different crew to focus on the black and white sort of gritty moment. It was strange. I love that movie, but it has had a very strange life, and sometimes you think movies are made as lost leaders, and it's just part of me think that maybe it wasn't promoted because somebody was making more money if it didn't make money, sort of like the producers.
Well, you worked for weeks on a musical number called Just Shows to Goya, and most
Yeah.
of the number was cut out of the movie. That must have been heartbreaking.
Yeah, I guess I move on. I mean, when that movie came out, I didn't dwell on it because there was still just the beginning and the end of it around the piano. But oh yeah, we had big dance number on the roof and this and that.
Well, did you ever get to see the entire number after you filmed it?
No, I think it was just lost on the cutting room floor. I heard later on. I mean, it'd be great if I could find it or something, but those were the kind of things that just go away and end up in the trash,
Now,
unfortunately.
your 1982 movie, Megaforce, has become a hugely popular cult film. And I understand there's a documentary coming out about the making of the movie. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, we call it the documentary nobody was asking for, and it's really quite good. It's being finished now. It'll probably hit some of the festivals in the next 3 or 4 months. I'm the executive producer on it, which means I did nothing but say I would be in it. And it's a story of it's not just all interviews about how you made a movie that, made no money and was a huge flop. But Bob Lindenmayer, who had this idea and put it together, had been a collector and a fan from the age of 12. And from then on, he was so affected by the good guy, bad guy aspect of the movie and the hero, the father figure that my character was, that he started to seek out me, Ace Hunter, and which was the character name. But prior to that, he had collected a lot of the machinery and the things from Megaforce, the cars, the motorcycles, everything that you could find on about Megaforce. he was a major collector, and not a nerdy collector, but a collector who understood why he was doing it, because of the history, the remembrances, and the emotional conditions that it brought to him. It's just a moving movie because I won't tell you the ending, but we do finally get together. He does finally worm his way into my life, and I encourage his exploration. And in so doing, our relationship starts exploring, this sort of bromance of it. I think it's sort of a fascinating film, but like all documentaries, it needs about 20 minutes cut out of it.
Well, it's going to be not only a welcome documentary for the fans of Megaforce, but it's going to make a lot of other people want to go back and see the movie. Now, Barry, in the 80s, you starred in a number of movies based on books by Judith Krantz, Barbara Taylor Bradford, Danielle Steele, like Scruples, I'll Take Manhattan, Till We Meet Again, Once in a Lifetime, A Woman of Substance. And you often played the good guy who was very supportive of his female partner. I remember hearing a movie critic say once that Tom Hanks is the modern day Jimmy Stewart in the movies, and you were the modern day Jimmy Stewart of television. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sure. Compare me with Tom Hanks, sure. In fact, I found out the other day that the part of Danny Zuko was between Tom Hanks and me. And I don't remember the final audition, but I guess Tom was there and I was there, and we sort of had this sort of face-off trying to figure out who they wanted as Danny Zuko. So yeah, I guess I sort of well, I was back then. And I don't know if I am anymore.
Well,
Uh,
I thought it was odd because it's true that you've played a lot of good guys over the years, but you've also played a lot of bad guys. And
yeah.
I don't think you've ever been typecast all these years. Do you?
No, that's been the problem. That's the problem with anybody's career. If you are capable, of doing different things, different parts, different that it's so much easier if you're Harrison Ford, if you have one persona, one voice, one thing. But when I was growing up and starting in show business, you had to know how to sing, dance, and act, and just be charming in an office. And all of these things creates a bed of accomplishments. But in a way, then if you're in, people are casting, they go, they usually look at the last thing that they saw you in, whether it was Spin City. Oh, he's just a comic actor, or I don't know, a hero or something, or just a goofball. I am all of those things and more, and well, actually, I'm more of a goofball, I think, than anything else. I think as I get older, I really embrace my eccentricities as an actor. I love to just come up with something just unexpected. I choose things that I'm in based on one scene. I like this one scene. I like this one moment, so that I'll do it. Well, the whole movie might not be very good, whether it's Moby Dick, 2010 or 12 or whatever what it was. But there was one great scene in it that I just wanted to do.
Well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because your longevity is undisputed. I want to take you back to May the 5th, 1984, Barry. That was the night you hosted Saturday Night Live. You got to work with Jim Belushi, Billy Crystal, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, such a great cast. Was that one of the highlights of your career?
Yeah, it was because it was just the right time. I had just finished the George Washington miniseries, so them wanting me was based on the George Washington, the first George Washington, 3 hours or something. Yes, yeah, they were all so great.
I want to mention another really great event that you hosted in 1999. It was the grand reopening gala of the Radio City Music Hall, co-starring Anne Margaret, Liza Minnelli, Shirley Jones, Ann Miller, Sting, so many more. When you're involved in an event like that, Barry, with so many great legends around you, do you get starstruck?
Oh, sure. but on something like that, there was no rehearsal, and I just made my entrance through the leggy, girls dancing, and then I was the host of it, so I never really got to do a lot of interchange with them. But I must say, in my hallway here, I have a picture of me from that event because I was very proud of it, and it was great fun. And yeah, but I've done a lot of things with some of these wonderful stars, and I kick myself by not going up and saying, "Can I have a picture taken with you?" As I don't have anything other than a very dim memory of Ethel Merman, that I did something with on PBS. But I guess that's okay because I would have a picture with Ethel Merman, on the wall or something, and then when I pass away, my kids are going to go, well, "Who's Ethel Merman, and why is my dad with her?" And it would end up in that box that ends up in storage, and then 20 years later, they go, "Well, wait a minute, who was my father?" Let alone, you
That's
know.
a terrible thought. You got to
Oh,
tell
isn't
your
it? It's a
kids.
horrible thought. I know, but that's me,
Terrible.
I think sometimes the glass just has to be half empty.
It's quite a glass. Now, of
Yeah,
course, I
well,
have to ask you about Spin City. What made that show so special for me is that the writing and the casting were so good in the sense that every character had a unique personality and point of view. The
yeah.
characters were not interchangeable like you see on so many other sitcoms, don't you think?
No, I do, and I think that's what its strength was. The characters were all iconic in a way. I mean, they didn't have a lot of depth, but you knew you could throw a particular joke or a particular storyline to Alan Ruck, because he was the one that was always leering, or you could you could throw a storyline to anybody. It was a very strong bench of actors and very clear, delineated characters. My character, the mayor, I always tried to get them to write a few episodes in which I could actually do it. I could actually look like I would run a city, and occasionally they would throw something in, and then Mike Fox would go, "Yes, you can do it. Yes, that's great." So he didn't always have to be saving me.
I know that many people saw your character, the mayor, as being stupid, but I saw him more as a rich, spoiled, entitled person with no common sense. But he was smart enough to win an election for mayor of New York City. How did you see your character?
Same as you just said it. He was sort of a half Reagan and half sort of movie star. Not that Reagan wasn't a movie star, but politician who just had a certain charm in front of the public and had a lot of help in the background.
He was a little
Yeah,
bit like Ted Knight on Mary Tyler Moore's show. The public thought he was so smart and so educated, but
yeah.
behind the scenes, we saw that he was a bit of a buffoon.
When they first offered me the part, it took us a while to find that part of the character. I think the initial instinct for the character was he was more nefarious. He tried to do a lot of things that were just like most politicians do now that weren't up to par, or not just up to par because of intelligence, but up to par in terms of the law. And then I think when we came up with the fact that he was just basically, as you say, an entitled, spoiled guy, I think it created a nice balance between Mike and myself and the rest of the cast. And so I was being saved on a weekly basis from, I don't know, the sort of silliness of my
Ineptitude.
personality. Yeah,
What
yeah.
was your reaction when you were told that you and Michael J. Fox were going to have to jump into the Hudson River?
Oh, well, that was not a good day. That was not a
Well, for
good
all
day.
those Spin City buffs out there, the episode was in season 2, episode 6, and it was called Radio Days. And I got to tell you, when I saw that, I couldn't believe you did that.
Yeah, I was recovering from prostate cancer surgery. I was still hooked up to a bag, and I know Mike was in not well at that point. He was something we didn't know what it was, but and so we both did it, held hands, jumped in the water, and I thought, okay, this is over. We can get up, we can dry off. That's it, we got it. And then I remember Mike saying, "No, let's do it again." And I went, "Oh, come on, Mike." We just, but also the interesting part of that is when they were out looking at the area that we were going to do it at, it was high tide. So when we finally went to shoot it, nobody checked the tide table. And now all of a sudden it was another 4 or 5 feet down from where we, leapt from. Thank God we had scuba divers in and around us where we were hitting, but no, we were neither of us were in the best health at the moment at that time, and so that's what I remember. I don't know if he remembers it that way, but I like those big moments in shows like that, and we had a few big moments.
Well, that's what I call dedication, I'll tell you. To do that, wearing a
Yeah.
catheter with a bag, I can't even imagine it. Tell me, did the atmosphere on the set change when Charlie Sheen joined the cast in season 5?
Well, I think we were all just blessed to have Charlie there because we thought it was over when Mike finally decided to leave, obviously because of his health. The transition was very slow. When Charlie came on, Mike did 2 or 3 episodes, and to sort of like ease the audience into, oh, well, there's going to be a new guy, And I think once Charlie actually found his footing and took over, I thought the show was quite good and different energy. I mean, didn't have the physicality that Mike had and that kind of nervousness. And but Charlie brought to it a history of Charlie Sheen, which we everybody sort of had a feeling of who he was before he took on this part, and it was also, I think, a good learning place for him to learn the whole vocabulary of sitcoms because he hadn't really done one before. This is before 2.5 Men.
Well, there's an episode in season 6 called Chinatown where you propose to Farrah Fawcett. She's your love interest in season 6. She turns you down. That's one of my favorite episodes of the show
Really, I forget that. Why did she turn me down?
because I don't think she wanted to be the mayor's wife.
Oh, well, like that, I could understand that. And
And there's another great episode in season 6 called Oh Mother, Where Art Thou, where your character is dating a woman played by Judith Light, and you find out that she had a heart transplant and the donor was your mother.
but
That's
hysterical.
an incredible episode.
How do they come up with that kind of stuff? I mean, that's what was so fabulous about that show. It was just really off center. A lot of it was off center, and which I loved. I loved the off centeredness of it.
Do you remember the episode in season 1 where Woody Harrelson won the contest to be mayor for the day?
No, and what happened? Did
Well,
he
you
did
can
he sit in my
imagine.
neck? Yeah.
Yeah, and but must have been fun having him on the set though.
Oh, sure. I mean, that was also great about working with Mike. He knew everybody in the world, and everybody would, whether from a sports star or anybody, would come and do an episode or a short run on the show, and he would. I met a lot of people I wouldn't have met if it hadn't been for Mike's influence. Getting them to come aboard. I mean, I don't think Farrah would have done it unless Mike encouraged her to do it, or the great models of the world doing it. And he always had a nice coterie of female interests in that show, which was I think a great addition to besides just solving the garbage problem in New York City.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Were you sorry when the show was canceled after 6 seasons?
Oh yeah, because I think we had more in us.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't know. I don't know why. I know that it was at that year was when if we had gone on another year, everybody's sort of salaries kicked up a bit, you know. Uh, and I think that maybe the network wasn't giving them enough money to accelerate, all the cast bonuses in a way. And I think we'd already done our 120 episodes, and so everybody was going to walk away with a lot of money, and they without the hassle of I mean, Charlie's salary was very large at the time, certainly amazingly larger than any of ours, and maybe we just priced ourselves off of television.
It's a shame because it was a great show. Now, Barry, you've played a number of real people in your career. In
Hmm.
1980, you played the legendary matinee idol John Gilbert in a TV movie called The Silent Lovers. How did you
Yeah,
prepare for that role?
I just watched a lot of movies that he was in. Tried to come up with the sort of ego that that man had. It was well directed. So, you when you have a good director who's somebody who's done the research and you're shooting scenes in the real places and in these wonderful Hollywood homes and you get a sense you knew and got a sense intrinsically of what these people were like, when you're sitting around this giant pool. And that was an interesting. So I got to go back and watch that again.
Oh, it's a great movie. One of your co-stars who played Irving Thalberg was John Rubinstein, who appeared on our show last year. He must have been great fun to work with.
Oh, he was because, well, and we had a sort of adversarial relationship in it, and I remember had one scene around a pool, and John Gilbert was acting up. He was drunk or something, and I started throwing things in the pool and kicking planters in the pool, and I looked over at John, and John was like so disgusted. And I remember thinking to myself, is he disgusted with me or with the character? And because, I just took it all very personally. And John and I were friends and we've done things since then and we love each other. But so I think it was, I don't know. I think that I like playing people who are uh, out of out of sync with their time.
Oh, well,
Who,
that leads me perfectly to 1984 and 1986. You played another real person, President George Washington, in two
yeah,
TV miniseries called George Washington and George Washington 2, The Forging of a Nation, opposite the
yeah.
great Patty Duke, who played Martha Washington. Was that a daunting task to portray such a legendary historical figure?
The daunting task was acting with Patty Duke because she was so real. Every moment there was never you never thought she was acting, and if you didn't react to her in an honest and real way, it just showed. I think she was the best actress I've ever worked with, and
That's saying a lot. Wow.
oh God, she was just spectacular. She was so real, so in the moment and supportive. You just never felt you were acting with her. Now, the George Washington, based on the Indispensable Man, the Flexner book novel biography, was very full, and there was an awful lot of information that we got out of it, and so we did a lot of historical research, but also we were shooting in the real places. We were shooting in the mansions and the homes. And there were docents and there were people who knew so much about that specific part of Washington's life that you could glean information from and some facts and maybe some nuance from. Particularly Mount Vernon. When we were in Mount Vernon, I mean, how could you, the people, the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, all that, they were so kind, helpful. I mean, they loved the fact that we were making something that showed George Washington, I think, as a real man and a guy who wasn't just, a figurehead.
Yeah, they were magnificent miniseries. You also played Commander Dick Scobie in a terrific TV movie called Challenger about the tragic 1986 space shuttle flight that killed everyone on board. That
Yeah.
must have been a very emotional experience for you, Barry, making that movie.
Well, emotionally, I was playing I was playing a guy who was astronaut, somebody who was how do you, well, he was a pilot. I mean, those guys, they they have no nerves in a way, and they're smart, they're scientists, they're mathematicians, they're guys who are team players and totally unflappable. The controversy about that was that we shot it just past only a year after the tragedy. And I think a lot of people in Houston and where we shot a lot of it, I think they were more emotionally attached to it. The people who were the last people to see them and putting them in in the capsule. And we worked with so many of those people who were there at that moment and had befriended everybody. And it was quite a task to not over dramatize and dance on the graves of these fine heroes.
No, it wasn't melodramatic at all. It was a real tribute.
Well, that's what I hope it was. And Karen Allen, who played the teacher, is so relatable and was so good in it, and it was really her story.
Well, the
And
movie really did honor to all of those people who we lost so tragically. Now, when we had Joanna Gleason on the show a few weeks ago, she talked about how devastated she was when the Broadway show Nick&Nora folded after only 9 performances. You were her co star in that show. And then
yeah,
in 1971, you were in another Broadway show called Soon, which closed after very few performances. Barry, how do you overcome those kinds of disappointments?
you try to get another job as quickly as possible. The I don't know. You're asking me if I have some emotional depth to my career
Well,
and
you
my,
certainly have resilience.
well, I have resilience and but I think I'm always looking forward and I'm not soon with Richard Gere and myself and people, the drummer from the Loving Spoonful. Yeah, I was a last minute replacement for the lead and I think I only had a week's rehearsal and then we closed on opening night. We had one night and then we closed. So I wasn't that emotionally involved with it. I was too busy trying to remember my lines. It's funny, some of the guys who were in the band of that were in the band in the pit for Grease, the original Grease. And they don't even remember me in the show. Because, everybody was they were just tap dancing so fast to try to get this thing on.
It's very
But
healthy that you just keep going. You don't
just
really
keep
sit
going.
there and stew. Joanna said that when that show was canceled, it was like having a gynecological exam in the middle of Times Square.
Well, I understand that because we were previewing for about 2 months on the street, and it was every day we were rehearsing, adding songs, taking away scenes, blah blah, and then we'd do a show that night that had to reflect what we were rehearsing. It was exhausting, and we weren't getting paid really. We were getting rehearsal money. We all had negotiated, fairly good contracts for when it opened but we had then spent over 2.5 months with no money, rehearsal pay, which was nothing. And they were working our asses off on this thing. And it seemed to be getting different, but not necessarily better on a daily basis. And there was an awful lot of pressure on Joanna to keep this thing afloat because the Nick and Nora balance was thrown towards Nora and not to Nick. I was almost ended up, I think, as I wasn't even, I don't even think I mean, the co-star because of my name on the title, but the real emotional story was hers. So she had a lot more, I think, involved. She had a lot more engaged in it than I did. I was probably miscast. And because I think you were talking about that sort of Jimmy Stewart aspect of my basic personality, and I think I was probably bringing a little too much of that to that show, and so I wasn't quite hard-boiled enough, to stand up to the powerful Joanna Gleason.
Well, as I told her, and I'm telling you, whatever happened to the show, the cast album is really good.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, I'm proud of that cast album. I'm not proud of the last song in the first act that I sang, Who's Alone Now. I don't think I sing it very well, and it was also just a terrible song for to end an act. I remember I was on stage singing this song about I'm all alone and oh poor me and what's going on and there was all the dog sitting there on a chair and you just knew every audience member's eyes were on that dog rather than my emotional condition at the moment. And I thought, and finally I thought, why the hell would they do that? Why would they pit a sort of a ballad at the end of the act with a dog? With not great lyrics, and I wasn't singing it very well because I didn't like the song. And I remember when the curtain went down at the end of the first act, there was this sort of, huh? The audience went, huh? That's it? That's the end of this act, and we're supposed to now care and come back? And that was always a little disappointing when I would go into my dressing room after that and then realized that we had to sort of grind everything up again by the beginning of the second act. I just think it was a poorly, it was executed well from the actor standpoint, but I don't think it was, but the album, as you say, some great music on the album, and the album has an energy that your show never had.
Well, like I said, you're resilient. Now, last year, you co starred with another one of our recent guests, Bruce Davison, in a multi award winning short film called The Roommates. It's
Yeah,
about two senior citizens living in a retirement home who plot to kill their obnoxious roommate so they can win a free cruise to the Bahamas. You
yeah.
won a whole slew of film festival awards for that movie. Did you have fun making it?
Oh yeah, no, that was a yeah, Bruce and I love each. We went to college together. We went to NYU. Working, he was. We both dropped out of NYU when we started working, and he was. And so I've known him forever, and I just think he's a spectacular actor. We over the years have just I'll get a part, and then he'll get the part, and then I'll get the part. And now that we are of the age that we are, we're still doing that. It's like, okay, who am I up against? Oh, Bruce. I'm up against Bruce. Jeez, Bruce will get this one. Maybe I'll get the next one. But yes, it was directed by a young filmmaker out of NYU school, and it was a fun story and short. You shoot those things in 5 days, but Bruce, he commits himself 100%, and in this in this little short movie we made, he is so affecting and so real. I don't know the guys who made it were trying to make it into a series, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it because it's a difficult story. I mean, once you've killed your roommate, where do you go from there? Do you go around as a team? Bruce and I just killing old people? No, no, you have to come up with
Yeah,
another.
that's true. The premise would have to have been adjusted for a series. In our remaining moments, I want to mention that in 2003, you appeared in an episode of Scrubs as a patient diagnosed with prostate cancer,
Yeah.
which is very significant because, as you mentioned, in 1997, you went through that in your own life. And in 2004, you won the Gilda Radner Courage Award from the Roswell Park Cancer Institute. So let me ask you, Barry, how's your health? How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm feeling great. That was so long ago, and you keep having your PSA tests and everything. You just feel lucky that you got through it. And there's people are still dying from prostate cancer, and I don't get it. I think people are just not taking enough care of their pre-testing, and they're not listening to their bodies. And so I will do anything I can to encourage people to get even though the PSA test, there's a lot of doctors saying, oh, it's useless and blah, blah, blah. That's the only thing you got at this point, you know. So if you can avoid the extra testing after that, all of the biopsies and this and that, I think they're still trying to find ways to effective ways to find prostate cancer, you know, in men that isn't quite as invasive. And I know there's a lot of people working on it, and I think they'll find it. But in the interim, I think you have to continue your testing, your PSA test, because that's how I found mine, just with a simple PSA test. And then we cleared it up as quickly as we could.
Well, thank God you did. It was important to me to mention it in this interview. So all those men over there, over 50, make sure you get your PSA tests regularly. Well, Barry, It's been a real pleasure meeting you and chatting with you about your monumental career, which extended far beyond Rocky Horror.
That's what I think. I'll tell my wife that when she sees this, I'll say we'll just cut all the Rocky Horror stuff out, you know, and get and talk about you know, Cock-a-Doodle Dandy or some of those other things. APA Phoenix Repertory Company. That was my first show on Broadway. Cock-a-Doodle Dandy.
Well, you're always going to be identified with that movie, but it was really important to me to highlight some of the other great stuff you've done. Thank you for all your great performances. Thank you so much for everything you do for your fans. And thank you for taking the time to appear on our show.
Harvey, you're the best. You're the best. You really know what you're talking about, and I'm sure you memorized my entire history, and it's not on cards in front of you, right?
Well, I happen to be a great fan, so it was easy. It's not always easy, but with you, it was really easy. Thank you again. Our guest has been the great Barry Bostwick. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time. Thank you to my producers, Steve Silver, my managers, Rick Marcelli and Robin Bragg Marcelli of the Marcelli Company in Hollywood, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my editor, Isaiah Sharalampidis, my PR directors, Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy Starr, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.